as the session goes in progress. Shri Prakash ji and Mr. Sagar Modi, could you turn off your videos?
I cannot turn off my video. It tells me I don't have the right to put my video on or off.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I think it is time. Yes. Good morning, everyone, and I welcome you all to this webinar, Driving Green Mobility Through Knowledge Sharing Platforms. And today I am Sahana, Junior Technical Expert from GIZ, who will be your compeer for this event. Let's start with some housekeeping rules, and it is my statutory responsibility to announce that we will be putting this event on recording, and any participants who have objection to this may kindly leave the meeting. And also, I request all of you to kindly turn off your videos and put yourselves on mute. The speakers, I request you to kindly unmute yourselves and your videos to be turned on as in when you start speaking. So right away, I would like to invite Ms. Shweta Kalia, Junior Technical Expert from GIZ, to give her opening remarks.
Hi, a very good morning to all. Thank you everyone for joining with us today. To briefly mention about the Transport and Climate Change Week, it's an annual event organized by GIZ on the behalf of German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety. In 2021, it's taking place as a hybrid conference with a studio in Berlin and decentralized event locations in Asia, Africa, Europe, Latin America, and with virtual participants. It's primarily aimed at transport policy makers and experts from a global partner countries and has the motto this year on smart and green recovery in transport sector. Under the TCC Week 2021, we have this webinar on driving green mobility through knowledge sharing platforms, where the key experts will discuss and share valuable experiences for leveraging the benefits of digital tools and knowledge collaboration to advance in sustainable mobility. I would also like to mention about the NDC Transport Initiative for Asia project, which is a joint program of 7 organizations supported by the International Climate Initiatives of the BMU. And this program aims holistically to decarbonize transport in the Asian countries, and the partner countries are China, India, and Vietnam. For the India component, GIZ India is the coordinator and Niti Aayog is our political partner. Our implementation partners for this India component are World Resources Institute, International Transport Forum, Agora Workers Vende, International Council on Clean Transportation, and REN21. Under the NDCTI project, GIZ together with TERI has developed a digital library on green mobility with a major focus on electric mobility. I'm sharing the link also to the portal, to the chat box, which you can access and explore to know more about it. And without taking much time, I would like to welcome Mr. Amit Kumar, Senior Director, TERI, to embrace us all with the welcome remarks. Thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shweta. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of TERI and on my personal behalf, I welcome you all to this webinar on driving green mobility through knowledge sharing platforms. I must also commend GIZ for its very timely initiative on this front. Now, knowledge assimilation, its categorization and dissemination is critical in today's knowledge society. But we also have that general perception that we already have search engines like Google. So what is the need for such a platform? And I would put only 3 key services that these knowledge platforms provide, which are not actually being provided by any search engines, including Google, and that are: you have curated knowledge products through these portals. The quality of those knowledge products is assured. And last but not the least is the relevance. We can have n numbers of pages, n number of search results from likes of Google, but whether or not they would give us the relevant information, that is something has to be taken into account. And that's where platforms like digital library on green mobility come into picture. Now, looking at this particular field, which is green mobility or e-mobility to be very specific, it's very growing field. And in such a scenario, access to right kind of information, right kind of data cannot be overemphasized, whether we are looking at it from the policy perspective or from the technology perspective. So in a sense, as I see DLGM, it provides an opportunity for cross-fertilization of ideas and peer-to-peer learning as well. Now, just to give an example, the other day I was a part of a jury that was evaluating some of the pitches being given by startups. Now, one of the pitch revolved around last mile cold chain solution for agriculture. And here there were two parts of it. One was last mile transportation through e-mobility, and other was cold chambers which were portable. But these two sets of people came together and came out with an idea that was more than aggregate of those two. Now, these kind of ideas, for these kind of ideas to germinate, it's very important that people who are not at all actually connected with e-mobility, for example, have access to that kind of knowledge that they can utilize in their own fashion. So here in this particular example, the startups, the other startup that was into developing portable cold storage, thought of that why not to link up with e-mobility and come out with a solution. So that gives an idea as to how green mobility can also be taken to different levels rather than what we thought of or what we think of in terms of mobility, which is mostly in terms of very constrained zone. So in the end, I would only say that as far as acceleration of green mobility is concerned, when we want to take it to a level where it can contribute majorly into decarbonization effort, I think up-to-date knowledge of such developments is very, very essential, and that only can actually catalyze green mobility to a different level. So with that, I would end. I am looking forward to the deliberations today because I see a galaxy of experts over there. And I am pretty sure that I am going to learn so many things from this webinar. So thank you very much and welcome to you. Thanks. Over to you,
Thank
Shana.
you very much. Thank you very much, Amit Kumar, sir. I would now like to request Mr. Siddharth Sinha, Public Policy Consultant from Niti Aayog, Government of India, to please deliver the special address.
Thank you very much, Shweta, and I hope that I'm audible. Firstly, a very good morning to all, or greetings to all of you, depending on wherever you're joining from. And I'm actually very happy that we are having a session on a concept which, as Amit Kumarji just said, is so very important and so very fundamental to policy making. But it is not talked about, more often. Firstly, today, clean mobility needs much more attention than ever, especially on account of the rapid urbanization that we have, happening in India today. Our urban population is most likely going to double by 2050. But also, more importantly, in the current context, COVID-19 has also led to a shift away from public transport and shared mobility, towards personal modes of transport. And that is why today it's really important for us to substitute, this sudden surge in demand, with cleaner forms of mobility. In terms of policy making, what we need right now is a methodical approach. Unfortunately, being in the government, I think it would only be fair to admit that such an approach is lacking today. The first step, just as is the case with any project or any report that you make, is literally a literature review. You first have to understand what is the issue, what do different reports have to say, what are the suggestions, what are likely challenges. All these answers exist, but unfortunately, they're all over the place. And that is why we need to develop a one-stop platform. And therefore, at the outset, I firstly must really congratulate, Terry and GIZ for rolling out this digital library on green mobility, because, it aims to provide a platform, for accessing knowledge, sharing ideas amongst, different stakeholders, not just in India, but also abroad, in terms of, low carbon transport. But within the government, I'll also like to tell you that, we have some other platforms, for instance, we have the Champions of Change platform of the Aspirational Districts program. And I think this is the biggest example of a, competitive federalism in the world. You look at the Champions of Change dashboard, it'll show you a wealth of socioeconomic parameters across the 100+ aspirational districts in India. And what this has led to is a kind of competitive governance where districts are looking at each other and saying, okay, look, he's doing better in education than I am, so maybe I should ramp up my efforts in this direction. And this was recently appraised by UNDP, and they actually said that the aspirational districts, which were earlier called the backward districts, are actually doing better than the non-aspirational districts or the normal districts. Then we also have the IESS, which many of you must be aware of, which is the India Energy Security Scenarios dashboard, which aims to explore a number of potential future energy scenarios for India up to 2047. And what this dashboard does is that it gives users a number of tools and levers to work with. And similarly, you've got other such dashboards within the government, such as the SDG India Index dashboard, where you have state and national performances across all 17 SDGs, and then you have the output and outcome framework or the platform of the Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office which is an autonomous office of NITI Aayog, where essentially we monitor all infrastructure projects. But today, we really need these platforms in the field of clean mobility because it's a concept which is catching up rapidly. But at the same time, we're also a vast and diverse federal structure. So we don't want to have a one-size-fits-all framework across India, but we also need to take inspiration from what has happened in other parts of the country and understand it in its entirety, and also try to apply it where it's applicable. So what was done, how was it done, what were the challenges, how were they overcome, what were the data, what was the outcomes, and what kind of best practices were applied. And just to give an example, for example, I think Amit from WRI would be here. They're assisting Delhi government with the with accelerating the adoption of EVs, and they're doing geospatial analysis. Look at the work which Delhi Meerut RRTS is doing, the first ever regional high-speed mobility project in India. How they've minimized land acquisition by deciding to build over the central verge rather than acquiring massive tracts of land. How they aim to bring in last-mile connectivity with trolley buses. Look at the work happening in the field of intelligent transport systems in Mysore. They've done fantastic work in completely revolutionizing, their bus systems, and how ropeways in the north and northeastern states is being explored as a form of overhead mass rapid transit. So, and I know of these 5 examples, but there's so many of you who would know of 5 more examples, 10 more examples. But the problem is that we don't have one central repository where we have all these fantastic ideas today. So just imagine the kind of phenomenal impact that it can have, and I'll just give you an example. When we talk about ropeways today, a lot of people will immediately think of ropeways as a tourism project. So a lot of states come and tell us, oh, that's a tourism project. But we tell them, no, it's a form of overhead mass rapid transit. If you look at the La Paz ropeway in Bolivia, it's one of the cleanest forms of mobility that you can have. So the problem is right now that, this knowledge is not being shared actively. But if this were, it would completely transform things. So if we institutionalize such a system at a national level for all mobility related projects, it will actually have a massive impact. So just to conclude, right now, our biggest challenge essentially is to kind of break the silos and encourage a culture of working and sharing knowledge collectively. We have to look at the overall positive long-term gains and the positive spillover effects rather than the short-term aspects, such as, authorities or agencies being territorial about their own projects and keeping the learnings to themselves. And over time on these platforms, we'll have to keep adding functionalities. They start with knowledge sharing, become a data repository, ultimately become a tool for, simulating different scenarios. That's what happened with the ITF's road safety, dashboard, which is one of the best platforms that's available today. And therefore, finally, it is crucial that we share as much as we can about our experiences in these areas. And as the government or as the private sector, we have to act as enablers of more such concepts and initiatives, which will contribute to our collective national success, when it comes to this India's aspirations and goals of, ushering in a clean, connected, and cutting edge mobility systems across, the country. And I look forward to the session and deliberations today, and I really look forward to, learning from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha. It was very good learning about the aspirational districts and also the long-term plans NITI Aayog has in mind. Now moving on, we would like to have a presentation by Dr. P.K. Bhattacharya, Associate Director and Senior Fellow from TERI, the Energy and Resources Institutes. I would also like to request all the participants, in case you have any queries for any of our speakers, please feel free to put them in the chat box. PKB sir, over to you.
A warm welcome and very good morning to all of you. Now, as I will be presenting this particular slides, is it visible to all of you now? Okay.
Yes,
just to in consideration of the last two speakers, what they have already pointed out, that breaking silos, working in a knowledge sharing culture is the buzzword today, so that green mobility can be promoted further across India as well as across the world. So from that perspective, the role of digital library on green mobility, and there are several knowledge sharing platforms, they become essential. So my presentation will be in two parts. First of all, I will be telling you what in digital library on green mobility we are doing, and I will also touch upon few of the interesting sites and their key features as well. Now, as we can see that web-based platforms are evolving rapidly, and every now and then we can see several other platforms are joining in the foray. So primarily the objective of these forums are bringing all scattered information or knowledge tools in a structured manner, so that every academician, policymakers, business houses, they can use it for their regulatory invention, for their business process, learning, lessons learning, knowledge sharing, everything. So that actually build capacity as well. So from that perspective, we have conceptualized Green Mobility Digital Library just to aligning Indian government's agenda in reducing the GHG emissions, consolidate scattered information. I will give you more detail how exactly we are doing it, and provide knowledge support to everybody. Now, this, as Shweta has already pointed out, that this has been developed under the NDC-TIA project, and it has been supported by the German Ministry BMU, as well as the GIZ India has supported us in developing this project, and in TERI we have created this Green Mobility Digital Library. It facilitates the knowledge sharing, it showcases the research standards, technologies, policies, etc., and focus on various dimensions of electric mobility that we'll see very soon. Now, this is what is the homepage of Green Mobility Digital Library. Now, key contents, if you see that they are knowledge hubs, EV ecosystem, which actually covers the perspective of different business perspective, you can say, media information, events, and glossaries. Now, as I tell you that our focus in some places we have more or less given on the
PKB sir. Yes. Sorry for interruption. Could we have it in full screen mode, please? Your presentation, is it possible?
This is in full screen, but it's not.
Yes, sir. Now better. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So in the digital library on green mobility, there are key components like knowledge hub, EV ecosystem, which actually takes care of several business entities and processes, media, events, and glossaries. So which are specifically mentioning to Indian perspective, as well as in some cases like where we want to have more of a research input, so we have taken care of all the linkages of global entities, as well as research papers from different international journals, and so on and so forth. Now, if you see the key features what we have given stress here, our idea was to bring all knowledge resources in the form of a digital library which is searchable. So contents are searchable up to metadata level for everybody. Now, if somebody wants to download full text, so they have to register it. And not only that, when you are searching these databases, there are several databases in the Knowledge Hub portion. So when you are searching these databases, you can actually see the similar type of contents available within the within DLGM. So that is one thing. Now registered user can download all data, and we maintain data privacy. We follow the Government of India's data sharing policy as well as GDPR also. Now the link, I think Shweta must have shared with you, and link is already given here, greenmobility-library.org. Now when we see what is there in the library, so it's a broad map. You can say that in the Knowledge Hub portion, books, policies, case studies, reports, journals, training materials, opinion videos, research paper, articles, standards, theses, anybody can access, as well as anybody can share also. So this portion is actually for everyone's contribution as well as access. Now you have to register yourself for getting the full text access. Otherwise, you can see up to the metadata level. In the EV ecosystem, all EV commercial informations you can find, as well as linkages to different, as I told you, business entity as well as research entities also. Events are national and international. We regularly keep them updated. Media news, we are little bit very, specific news, whatever has long-term effect or such kind of things. So we are actually having those news and press releases also. Glossary gives a terminology terms. You can ask questions or see from whatever questions you are having in the FAQ section. And of course, you can give us feedback. Now, important thing is that, this website was launched in November. So since December, we are managing how many users have come to this particular website and what way they are getting benefited. So we have seen that over 26,000 users have viewed it. Unique visits or unique users who have visited our websites now well above 3,600. Social media, we are promoting it, and people are actually tweeting and retweeting other. So these are the figures I have given you. So this is definitely a growing scenario here. Now, when we recently had a quick survey, and the response we received shows that users are more or less happy in terms of features and accessibility of this website. Now, other things, if you see that 11 countries people are using this website, and these are the type of people percentage-wise they are using this website. And when we ask them that what are the benefits you are getting from this website, most people said that knowledge enhancement are the primary benefits they are getting. But of course, research, academic purpose, even business purpose, policies, etc. So they are also getting benefited across from different section of the knowledge sharing platform. Now, DLGM offers you easily downloadable content. That's what I was saying, and you can share your resources with us, so that data will be protected everywhere. Now, these are few slides you can see that these are EV commercial examples, like charge point operators or charger manufacturers, and then linkages you can link to each of these. We have linked to each of the interesting, important business entity as well as research, entity as well. And we update media and news items, as you can see that. And these are the glossary of terms, whatever are the part of DLGM knowledge sharing resources you can think of. So all those terms are here, and with a clear explanation of them. Now come to the second part of my presentation. What are the other e-mobility platforms which have a lot of contributing a lot of value globally? Now, one is this changing transport platform, what we have found, and key features is that they give a good climate change tracker strategies that I have mentioned here, and country-wise list of projects, news, events. So this is a first of the list. Then the second one is Department of Heavy Industry in India. They are actually, under the FAME India 2 scheme. So they have, created this dashboard, which is very useful for all, stakeholder, all types of stakeholders. Of course, you can also get different schemes, models, OEM and dealer information also from there. The third in this row is our ARAI, that is Automotive Research Association of India's, different type of data. So they have already collected different government data and they are keeping them available to others, as well as they have a technology-driven, platform. So Technovas, we have a expert today also from ARAI, so they will give us some more, highlights on those things. Then the last of the list is the Go Ultra website. So we also have an expert from Go Ultra. What we have found that this is a UK-based website and which is given the entire, tools and technologies. So how best users can use it, rather focusing on user-centric services. Several others, platforms are there. Several other platforms are there, but due to paucity of time, I have covered only these platforms. So I hope that our panelists will give some more clue to this. So with this, I am just stopping here. In case you have any query, we can probably answer later on also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PKB sir, on highlighting the importance of digital. Speakers and the moderator to kindly switch on your video cameras. We have the moderator for today is Mr. Sri Prakash, Distinguished Fellow of TERI, and the panelists are Dr. Shantanu Ganguly, Chief Librarian, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Mr. Amit Bhatt, Executive Director, Integrated Transport, World Resources Institute, India, Dr. Sagar Modi, Head of Energy Systems and Infrastructure, FENEX, the Center for Excellence for Low Carbon and Fuel Cell Technologies, Mr. Ashwin Subramanian, Deputy General Manager, Automotive Research Association of India. Over to you, Mr. Sri Prakash ji.
Thank you, Sahana. Thank you very much. We will have a very short webinar of 30 minutes and we'll try to be very brief in our discussion so that we can take as many questions as possible and possibly from the audience also. I was very impressed, that what has been done so far. Mr. Sinha talked about the possibilities that are getting open in the policy making side, and also, the platform that Mr. Bhattacharya has shared with us, and then, in fact, when I was there in the policy making side and implementation side, I did not have the luxury of having this kind of the aids and tools. Now this, without going into detail, which I will reserve for my comments later on, I go straight to Dr. Shantanu Ganguly, who has been my old friend. I straight to him and understanding from him that how these digital libraries and knowledge sharing platforms are going to contribute to sustainable mobility research, which is very important as of now, because it is becoming very clear that it may be difficult for us to attain the zero emission, at least in the transport sector by 2050. So this, Dr. Ganguly.
Good morning, Sri Prakash ji, and thank you very much for to all the esteemed panelists also. And at the outset, let me take this opportunity to thank TERI and especially Dr. P.K. Bhattacharya, Dr. Indradeep Mitra of GIZ India for inviting me to be part of this esteemed panel members. I can see a galaxy of speakers are there. And in fact, during my regime in TERI, I was also one of the integral part of this particular project, implementation and conceptualization of this. Well, I think already the ball set rolling by Mr. Siddharth Sinha in his talk from Niti Aayog, and Dr. Bhattacharya has shown. But one of the important thing is that, see, e-mobility is a very upcoming field in India today. And it is a need of the hour. And this digital library platform commissioned by TERI with the help of GIZ and other partners will immensely contribute to the support of research and development in this country. So one of the pragmatic area which I could see that this particular platform is to sensitize and generate a lot of awareness among the various tiers of stakeholders. That's a very, very important area. Second thing is that when you see this particular platform, you will find that compared to other platforms which Dr. Bhattacharya was showing, this particular platform gives you a research insights. See, a paper is there, a particular research paper is there, but if you go into the brief abstract of it, you can select that which one is meant for me. So I can look into that particular thing. So that's a very, very important area. And these research insights, in fact, they have taken it up from each and every documentation which was done in this particular platform. And that's an immense, incredible work done by TERI on this. This much I can say right now.
Thanks. Thanks, Shantanu. In fact, I agree with you that there is a need for generating awareness among everyone, the users as well as the policymakers and everyone. And of course, we'll be getting a lot of research insights as well through this platform. Now I turn to my old friend Amit. And Amit is basically a activist and also researcher. Now, Amit, with this better availability of data and information through digital libraries, how do you visualize the future research in sustainable mobility?
Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. I think one of the things that we have often come across, and as this was mentioned earlier also, is, and especially for research, is the lack of data. And what we have seen is that in many cases, even when the data is available, there is always a question mark on the validity of the data. So sometimes the data is not in the format which can be used by researchers. Sometimes accessibility of the data is an issue. So I think one is very important is if we are able to open up whatever data we have, because one is to collect new data and we should go ahead and get as much data as we can. But I believe there is already a dearth of data which is available. It's just that it is not open for researchers to use that. I mean, you will come across many cities during the JNURM times came up with comprehensive mobility plans. Hardly 10-15% of these mobility plans are available for people to access. And even in that, the data is not available. So the analysis which is available. So many cities have collected and collect data. The question is, how do we open it up? So that's one. I think so. This digital library is a great example of helping. Second, I think initiatives like this will also help state governments and central government and the departments to further advance opening up of data. So, for example, we work very closely with Delhi government and IIIT on helping open up transit data. So in Delhi, you can find real-time bus data available for people to use and locate the buses, but also use that data for their own app building. So how do we incentivize this? And the typical response that we see from these agencies is that, but what will happen to the data? I mean, so what do I benefit from the research, right? So I think if we are able to contextualize this opening of data in a way that, look, this data will help research, advanced research, but ultimately it's your department or your government who will benefit from the research. You can make much more judicious decision on investment, on prioritizing what you need to do. And if you are able to demonstrate, I think we will do a lot of good. So to me, this digital library is a great initiative. And I hope it can catalyze a larger level ecosystem change where agencies, both public sector and private sector, come together, share the data so that researchers like you and me can use high quality data for doing this research. So congratulations for making this a reality.
Thank you, Amit. I agree with you that whatever the research is being done is based on the lack of data is very visible, and authenticity is also questionable. And I also agree with you that the lack of interest, that making the data available by the government agencies, particularly to the private researchers, this. And Mr. Sinha must be listening now. To Mr. Sinha, I think that he is getting all the data from the government, and he would share with us also at least a bit of it. I'm just putting it in a lighter vein. We are getting a lot of support from Niti Aayog. Now, I now turn to Dr. Modi. Now, Modi is, you know that I don't know much about the IT and e-mobility tools, etc. You know this, because at my age, it is very difficult to learn also, that new things are coming up every day. Well, with online e-mobility tools, how they can help the users and that help with user-centric mobility services, and how do you see the future demands for such tools? Obviously, there should be a demand. Dr. Modi?
Yeah, thank you, sir. So user-centric mobility services is the new thing that is coming with our push towards green mobility, and this is so vastly different from our traditional transport systems and ways that essentially this changeover from the traditional transport to e-mobility is being viewed as quite a complex thing. And let's be honest, it is. With everything that people have said so far, data is at the center of it. We don't have visibility. Of course, we don't sit with crystal balls. And if it's so difficult for experts to come together and come up with solutions, we can imagine how difficult it is for your final end user and at a personal level to make decisions to be more green is quite a daunting task because there's a lot of information, there are too many factors. So it is essential that there is a way that this information is put in front of users, in front of final users, in which they can digest this information more easily, understand the topics, but also use tools to help them make guided and more firm and confident decisions. We don't want to put people off moving to green mobility because that's going against what we want to do as internationally, not just nationally in India, not just nationally in the UK, but internationally. We are all moving towards net zero. And as you know, let's take the example of the GIZ strategy for this week, which is, I just wrote it down. It was, we want to avoid transport first, and you want to improve it, rather than saying we go for personal mobility and all go and buy electric vehicles. That may not be the correct answer for everyone. That may not be the correct answer for every country or every state or every region. And because things are so vastly different, to understand them at a personal level and make a decision tomorrow that can I go and buy an EV and will that work for me? These tools are absolutely necessary. Let's take something as complex as the total cost of ownership. This isn't a very user-friendly topic, but it's absolutely essential to understand that in certain cases, and it may be your case, that total cost of ownership of having an EV today is actually going to be cheaper over, let's say, 1 year, 2 years or so, compared to your traditional transport options, which you have at the moment. But you have an expert talking at you essentially about TCO. You're going to lose, you're going to lose the drift. You might even misunderstand the fact. But if you have a tool that's user-friendly online that you can go and access in your time and engage with interactively, then the chances of you digesting that is much easier. And ultimately, we have to think that it is the people who are going to bring the change. It is the experts who are going to guide the people to make the change. So we've got to do everything we can to make it easy for people to grab that information, to understand that information, and to make the change. And lastly, it is worth noting that, some statistics, for example, 66.6% of the world's population, which is about 5 billion people, use a mobile phone today. Okay. And 60% of the population of the world, this is 2021 figures, have access to the internet. So the internet as a medium for accessible tools and interactive tools is a great way forward to make this big change. And as far as what digital green mobility tools have a future demand, you are talking, there are a few points which concern all of us when it comes to mobility. We're all creatures of habit, but we're also all born with this feeling inside us, which we cannot explain, which is we have to travel, we have to explore. So transport is a fundamental issue for all of us. We cannot give it up. And I think experts are not trying to tell the world, the people, the nation, the region to give it up. We're just saying we want to shift the way we do things, shift behaviors. And we know shifting behaviors is very difficult. And it takes a long time. However, we all have very compressed timelines to meet the net zero targets that we've set for ourselves. So how do we do this, and how do we take people along for the ride? This is very important. And for this, two things need to come together. Open data, verified data at a national level, which can be used by private sector to actually compete on an even playing field. So collaboration rather than competition is probably the way forward, and it's going to bring things together in a way that's going to help us achieve these targets in the times we've set for ourselves. What are the things that concern people? So what are these tools that are going to be important? Money, mileage when it comes to transport. What are the green options available? Do they actually work for me? How costly are they going to be? How do I make sense of all of this different information? And I have to change my behavior. If I'm buying an EV, I can't refuel my car like I was refueling it before. I need to know where these charge points are, and they take sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 4 hours to fill my car up. There is a new cost to consider because electricity is what I'm paying for. I'm not paying for fuel anymore. So how does that work out? And where are these places I can refuel? So all of these things are what we want to answer with these things. So as far as demand is concerned, people want to know what cars they can buy, what vehicles they can buy, what scooters or e-bikes they can buy, whether they will work for them. So somewhere they can put their regular journeys and actually be able to understand interactively with a tool and with all of the knowledge around it, whether actually it is any sensible anymore to have a car that does 500 miles or 500 kilometers of mileage in one fuel tank. Is that important? Because if I'm only doing 50 kilometers a day of mileage, it's suddenly not that important for me to have 500 kilometers in my tank at all times. So again, it's a change of behavior, and it can only be brought by tools like an EV selector, a journey planner, something that can give them information on the questions they ask. What are the incentives in my region which will help me switch to an EV? Or what is the cost of electricity if I today plug in my EV at home or indeed on the street? Where there is a public charge point, and where are these places that I can charge? And all of this has to be driven by dynamic, open, and verified data.
Okay, thank you very much. You have very beautifully explained. My doubts actually are also much more clearer now. Thanks a lot, Sagar. And now I turn to Mr. Ashwin. Mr. Ashwin is Deputy Manager, Automotive Research Association of India. Ashwin, which technology strategy needs to be adopted for promotion of electric vehicles? Because now we are talking about promotion of electric vehicles, and we want to hasten the process. So what do you suggest that which technology strategy should be addressed first, particularly in view of these ongoing digital transformations, that are taking place, which Sagar explained very beautifully. Ashwin?
Yeah, thank you. So I would perhaps put this in 3 points. The first, which has been covered quite nicely by Dr. Modi and Mr. Amit, is by leveraging the strength, reach, and democratized nature of technology and the internet in the spread of information. Now, as has been correctly pointed out before, unless people are actually aware of how using an EV is going to meet their needs and perhaps even exceed their needs and expectations, unless this information is available to them readily and in an easy to understand manner, the transition is going to take much longer. So the first is using the or leveraging technology to dispel myths, make people aware of the different schemes and policies and incentives which are available, sharing other positive experiences of EV users, addressing the needs of the consumer in layman terms, such as the total cost of ownership and the availability and their requirements for charging, various do's and don'ts, and leveraging the strength of and the decentralized nature of social media for better spread of knowledge and information. This is perhaps the first and most immediate thing which can be done. And this is quite frankly being addressed quite nicely by Terry and the Digital Library on Green Mobility. The second is leveraging data for gathering customer needs in a much more effective way to come out with more customized solutions and user-specific requirements. So we can see this in the form of a number of startups which are not just working towards the traditionally defined mobility and EV solutions, but more specific and customized EV solutions for all sectors or across sectors. So for example, we are starting to see electric tractors where the inherent disadvantage of batteries in the form of weight could actually be an advantage for them, wherein an additional weight is something which is a benefit for them in terms of performing the various operations on the field, or developing of customized urban mobility solutions in the form of either scooters or customized vehicles for delivery drivers and so on and so forth. So gathering and compiling the data and using it in a more meaningful way to develop solutions for different users across sectors is the second point. And the third would be perhaps developing a more user-friendly UI for making the EV transition far more appealing. So, for example, Tesla has done this quite well in form of helping people plan their entire journey from start to end in terms of the availability of charging stations, when they would have to charge, depending on what speed they travel at or what the traffic conditions are. So creating an entire user interface which would leverage the benefits of EVs and making this available to the end users to make the whole transition to EVs far more appealing is perhaps the third point wherein we could leverage technology and use this as a strategy moving forward for the faster adoption of EVs.
Thanks a lot, Ashwin, explaining so beautifully. Now I come back to Shantanu again and would like to know from him about his views, the trying to understand, that these digital libraries and knowledge sharing platforms have come up. Now, how they are going to play a critical role in sustainable mobility research and also policy making, and what should be done, so that they are very well utilized. Shantanu?
Yeah, thank you, Shriprakash. I think my esteemed panel members, Mr. Ashwin, Mr. Sagar Modi, and Mr. Amit Dutt have highlighted some of the very pragmatic issues regarding data. Basically, they were talking about data innovation and data intelligence and all, where I will rather look at from a data visualization point of view, where a common man can look at it, the data, and can make some decisions out of it. Even the researchers, the policy makers can come out of it. See, the Digital Library Green Mobility, the platform which was prepared, it was a repository of data. information and knowledge insights in the form of case studies. We have best practices. It helps not only the researchers, but the other stakeholders also to bring in a lot of innovation. In fact, this particular platform is like a one-stop shop actually, is basically for not only for the academician, even for the researchers and policy makers also. But certainly there is a lot of provision to taking it to the next level. Like, for example, I'll highlight upon 3 major areas where it can go to the next level also. Like, for example, if we can have a kind of what we basically call as an open data consortia. In fact, nowadays, like I work for the biomedical sector right now. So there is a lot of open knowledge and data consortia is coming up, because data is getting generated, curated by different organizations, institutions at that level. And all this data, if it comes to at one particular platform, so it would be much more, analyzed. And when I'm talking about data, it is not only the numerical data, even the textual data also. So that's one of the area. Another thing which I would think that, one of the important component is, like, for example, I think we can implement a lot of AI applications into that, and artificial intelligence for getting the information insights from the resources which are inbuilt inside the platform. And some of the, like, for example, if we can have a semantic ontology built on those areas with a very strong taxonomy platform and all, the insights which are there inside the each and every resources which are built in can easily pull out those information for the researchers, for the academicians, or even for the civil society also. So that kind of a thing, I think. And another third component is that I think we should have now in the digital library green mobility, when it is becoming a so much of sensitive topic nowadays, and I think there should be a knowledge mapping should be carried out in the entire green mobility sectors, where the entire differentiation of the e-mobility, and in fact, there are a couple of areas where I would like to highlight here. Like, for example, I was going through one of the very interesting website where they have developed a consumer-centric e-mobility knowledge center they have created, where some of the advice articles are there. Suppose I am a consumer, I need what kind of charging points are required. So I need a few information which will be hand-holding for me to find out which particular charging plug or which particular stations would be useful for me. So these kinds of very small bit of information, but which are extremely valuable in today's context, need to be a part of that. And I think that's what is my suggestions to and on this particular thing, which will help both in research as well as in the policy sector too. Thank you.
Shantanu, before I go to the next panelist, there is a question here now which has been posed by a researcher, that what is the criteria which are being adopted for putting the material on this the say platform. Then can you answer it to her very briefly?
Yes, I think what he is talking about is regarding the copyright, basically. Basically, what we have done that there are two aspects out of it. One is that we have, I think in the digital library platform, which was created, where we have kept only the metadata. I think Dr. Bhattacharya has already shown the and in some of the places the people have written the they have done the articulation of particular research insights were given, and we have and in the platform itself some of the resources which have been shared, which are in open domain and which are under the banner of Creative Commons, where on some of the clause of the Creative Commons, like share you like and all those resources were shared, which are copyright free, which doesn't, such kind of, in fact, I remember when I was a part of it, we used to write a lot of, resources for taking resources for even from the international and national organizations. We have been communicating with them that we want to take your informations on our website. So what is the I mean, can we get linkages to that? So in many cases, what we have done is the linking of those resources have taken place rather than straight away taking the repository, because there is a lot of DRM issues are there, digital rights management issues are there. So information which are taken on a Creative Commons basis, the metadata was articulated, the metadata level it is there. If anybody needs a full text article out of it, then he has to register, as Dr. Bhattacharya mentioned, he has to register and ask for that, and based on under the fair use clause, he could be provided the informations on that itself.
Thanks. I am sure that this might have answered the query that was posed by the researcher. Now this, we are running short of time, you know that we're running out of time. So now this, one thing which has been bothering me and which I would like to ask Dr. Modi, you know that a lot of and Amit mentioned about this authentic material and how you are going to ensure this authenticity in your tools as well as these platforms. Then what are your views, Dr. Modi?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think it comes back to having data standards. Just standardization in any form is a good thing. Now, the worry is when you bring up standardization, the private sector is always sometimes not ready to accept that, because they feel standardization means you're closing the market down. And data in the recent years has been touted as big data as a market. However, we need to understand that data in itself, as many of the panelists have said, is not as valuable as clean, curated, and verified data that is actually useful for the next person on. So that curation is the process that brings value to the data. Is really what we're talking about is we need to figure out what the value chain of the data is after having created some standards which ensure that verified data is being put into databases. Let's say the good example is that the UK government has an open data initiative, which means that there is certain data that is curated by the government and different offices of the government and put there for basically for the use of researchers for free. There's an open government license under which you can get all of that data, whether that's quantitative, qualitative, or analysis or report-based data on transport, on energy, on different vectors that are necessary for us to all live and research. And this is available to independent researchers, is available to commercial consultancies, is available to not-for-profit consultancies like ourselves. And this suddenly changes the game. By no means is it perfect. There is so many different things that still need to be worked on. However, what gives us the confidence as researchers and as consultants to use that data, to believe that data, is the fact that it's coming from a standardized format of curation, which is a standard created by the government, where they will first look at the data that they're getting or they are collecting in certain cases, and it will pass the rigorous test of the government data validation and be put on as for free use. If certain data is coming from different commercial partners or different places, then there is a clear demarcation that this does not meet the rigorous guidelines of the standards of the government data. However, it is still available. So it's two things. One is standardization, and the second is clarity. Both of those things can be really helpful. And of course, if all of this is wrapped up in understanding the value chain of data, I think a lot of the people who are collecting data, whether that is regions, governments, private sector, they will not be so standoffish, if that's the right phrase, to give that data, to give access to that data. If they can understand, as I think Amit said, that there is more value to giving this data and to have it curated, researched, and analyzed, so that everybody can have an even playing field to create new businesses and new markets on the basis of information.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Modi. In fact, today is a very exciting day, particularly for me, that having known that there is something which is available which would help the sustainable research as well as the policy making. Thank you very much. And now over to Sahana.
Thank you very much, Sri Prakash ji, and all the panelists. It was a wonderful discussion, and we are very glad that we were also able to answer a couple of queries from the audience. Unfortunately, due to lack of time, we may not be able to go forward with the Q&A session, and I would like to invite now Ms. Shweta Kalia, Junior Technical Expert from GIZ India, to please deliver the vote of thanks.
Hello, everyone. I, on behalf of GIZ and TERI, extend a very hearty thanks to all the speakers and participants for gracing your knowledge today on this interesting topic. Our sincere thanks to BMU for funding this project, our NDCTI project headquarters, and the Transport and Climate Change Week organizers and co-organizers. My sincere thanks also to Niti Aayog for their continued support, and also Mr. Siddharth Sinha for providing very interesting insights in today's session. Many thanks to our NDCTI working group partners and our internal GIZ network. As a closing remark, I would like to mention that knowledge sharing and exchange through comprehensive digital platforms like DLGM can make a huge impact in promoting nascent and innovative technologies, including green mobility, and having a wider adoption among people at large. Thank you, everyone, once again for your participation. On the ending note, I would also like to announce about our next webinar we have in the TCC week itself, and that is on EV charging infrastructure and grid integration in the Indian EV ecosystem. This webinar is on 24th of June at 10 a.m. Indian Standard Time only. So we will also be sharing the separate invites for this. We look forward to attending that one also, because this one is going to be very technical, and I think we will be able to gain great insights on that as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful having all of you, and thank you for your kind cooperation and your time. And we hope you all have a very great day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. ये क्वेश्चन मेरा नहीं है, ये देखो नहीं खत्म हो गया।